of the best ways to set yourself up to be able to know if your horse is round while you're in the saddle is to just use some visual tools. I like to use some bright tape, and what you'll do is just rip off about 6 inches or so. Then you'll take it and have your horse lower their head until their poll is roughly the same height as their withers. Now, you don't want their poll below their withers. It can be a little bit higher, but ideally at the same height. And then what you'll do is you're going to take your tape and just place it along their neck so that it's horizontal to the ground, okay? So then, when you're riding in the saddle, you can take a look at your tape, and ideally, it's straight across. Now, if you're working on some collection, your tape will point a little bit higher, but that's because their hind end is lowering, not because their neck is coming up, okay? So when you're in the saddle, you'll want their neck to look like this. When you're looking for stretch, then you'll know that the tape is pointing down. The next place that you can put some tape is, I like to rip this one in half if you're using duct tape so that it's a little thinner. And what you'll do is you'll just take this and place it right along their cheek so that it will be vertical to the ground. Good girl. So that then, when you lower her head, good girl, this tape is horizontal and this tape is vertical. Now you'll be able to notice if your horse is behind the bit because the bottom of the tape is going to be pointing at her knees, and this will point down. So what you ideally want is this tape to be vertical or slightly, the bottom to be slightly in front. You want this tape to be horizontal or very slightly up. The last place that you can put a little bit of tape, you don't need too much, is if your horse tends to break at their third vertebrae, or you keep getting yelled at that your horse is behind the bit, you can just take some tape and put it on the top of your crown piece of your bridle, okay? So then, what you want to do is be able to slightly see this tape when these two are in the places that we discussed. If they go behind the bit, it will break so that the tape is pointing this way and you won't be able to see it when you're in the saddle. And then with a resisting elbow, a receiving hand, and some leg, then you'll be able to put the tape where you want it. Yeah. And with her conformation, that cheek tape might point a little bit towards her knees, but that's more conformation. And once you get her withers more engaged, her withers and her balance will pick that cheek tape up to where it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? So don't just give every time you see that bottom of that cheek tape get a little too close to you. Just add some leg and say, oh, that means that I know that I need her withers and her entire balance to pick that up. Does that make sense? And then that would be a little outside rein for rebalancing. And notice there, when you added your outside rein, she just sucked everything back. Her neck tape pointed up. Her pull tape came way higher up. And that doesn't necessarily just mean give your hands. It means that the circle of energy a little bit went completely the wrong direction. And sometimes you just need patience, right? Good. So as you try transitioning to trot, just, keep an eye on where your tape is and where your tempo is. And she needs to find her own way to fit inside those aids and that shape, which means she's going to need to bring her back up. And just keep talking it out with her. Yeah, it doesn't always mean that you need to give your hand if the tape changes where it's supposed to be, right? That was great timing for that give. That was pretty good. Yep. And now since Gracie's a Morgan, her tendency is to pick her head up instead of pick her withers up. So you need to find a way to encourage her withers to become separate from her neck so that then she can bring her back up and her neck can lower, and then the tape can go where it wants to, or where it's supposed to, I mean. Yeah, and good holding your rhythm in your core and your seat. And remembering that with her especially, we need forward to be a thought instead of a speed. Good, and then let's do that one more time. Counter bend. Encourage her neck tape to be more horizontal to the ground. Which is hard for her because she has to engage her core and lift her back and step under with her hind legs, which is all not really in her conformation wheelhouse. There. Yep. And then as you get the tape all where you want it, you're going to change your bend, keeping the tape the same distance from the ground. And keeping that neck tape horizontal and the face tape as vertical as possible. And remembering to not widen and lower your hands to try and get that to happen. Because if you do that, you make a ceiling for her withers. And since her pole wants to come up instead of her withers, we don't want a ceiling. Good, riding the leg there. Yep, and then get her neck even a little bit more horizontal. And that's going to tell you that her back came up and is also horizontal. Good. Yeah, we want our back to be convex, not concave. And the only way she's gonna put her neck down when you have hands like you do right there is if she brings her back up. And there her back dropped. So see if you can get her cheek tape a little more vertical, probably with your leg instead of giving hand, and her neck a little more horizontal. There, her back has to start coming up again. Feel the difference? Which will pick her back up, which will then put her neck down. Her hind legs will take a step under her to support her core. Quiet your hands, don't let her move them around so much. Good. A little more horizontal tape. That's it. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of points before we're done. The first is that Gracie, the horse that we used in the video, is a Morgan. So if you had noticed, she tends to not quite track up sometimes, and she also tends to pick her neck up and her head up and shorten her neck as pretty much the first response she has to any balance or difficult problem that happens in her life. Horses like this, also like Friesians and a couple of the other mainly driving breeds that we now ride, tend to move themselves in a way where their neck comes more out of their shoulder upright, and they don't tend to go to using their back as a point of strength. They also tend to have their haunches and their pelvis put onto their body a bit more out the back. So it takes a little bit more effort to get them to engage their core and then stride under and track up or over track. So that's the first thing. The second is, as you could notice, if you were more of an upper level rider or just educated and have seen a lot of more upper level horses, that's not the frame that we were asking for today, and that's not the point of this video. So the point of this video is to help riders who truly don't understand how their horse, or if their horse is round when they're riding and they're not in a lesson or have somebody else to tell them that they're doing a good job. Now, these riders are not riding third or fourth level. They're probably either just backyard riders that have absolutely no interest in going to a dressage show, or they are more like a hunter, which they never want their horses in an uphill frame like that. Or they've just started this sport or have a new horse and they're trying to get them more at a balanced frame than just on their forehand. So if you are somebody that wants to use this type of tool as something to help you with your more upper level horse and frame, just when you put the tape on, put their head at the height based on their withers where you want it, and then have a good ride.